Welcome back students to the video lecture series. I am Adil Mansoori from Civil Engineering Department of LJ Institute of Engineering and Technology. So my dear students, in the previous video we discussed about the classification of air pollutants, okay, as we were discussing about the air pollution. So in this video let us start with the next topic, that is sources of air pollution. So there are different sources of air pollution like man-made source or natural sources. Okay, so let us start with the natural sources. I'll directly show you the pictures so that you will get a better clarity, right? So the first one is the, can you guess? Yes, it's the volcanic eruption. It's not a lava, but it's a volcanic eruption. So the activities such as volcanic eruption can result into air pollution. Okay, then forest fires. You are well aware that in recent time there was a huge forest fire in Australia, right? And which resulted into tremendous air pollution. Then this is known as the dust storm, right? And salt spray, right? And near the seashore. Clear? So moving ahead, talking about the man-made sources. Yes, can you guess? So it is the industrial activities, right? There are several industries which are running day and night to meet the demands of the public, right? So it is but natural that it will release toxic and exhaust gases from the chimneys, right? Then thermal power plant, exhaust from the automobiles or vehicles. Then, so as you can see, this is the spraying of the insecticides, right? Then activities like mining or quarrying, then exhaust from the jet engines, nuclear explosion, and domestic fires. Okay, so these are the different man-made air pollution sources, right? Moving ahead, talking about the primary air pollutants. So what are they? So they are different gases like carbon monoxide, which constitutes 49.1%, nitrogen oxides, which constitutes to 14.8%, then volatile organic matters, that is 13.6%, sulfur oxides, that is 16.4%, and particulate matters, which accounts for 6%, right? And where they do come from? So talking about carbon monoxide, 46.2% it is coming from transportation. So all these gases are coming from transportation, which constitutes of 46.2%. Then stationary source fuel combustion, 27.3%, right? Then 15% come from industrial processes, and 2.5% comes from solid waste disposal, and other 9% comes from miscellaneous activities. Okay, so moving ahead, so let us talk about different air pollutants and their sources and effects. So major air pollutants are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, NOx, that is oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, hydrocarbon, and photochemical oxidants. And one more, that is particulate matter and ground level ozone. Okay, so let us talk about each of them in detail. Let us start with the carbon monoxide. Okay, so carbon monoxide is a dangerous gas. First of all, talking about its properties, it is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and it is insoluble in water, and it is chemically inert under standard temperature and pressure. Okay, so these are the different properties of carbon monoxide. Talking about concentration, if it is less than zero point 0.1 ppm, then it do not cause any harm, but if it exceeds zero point 0.1 ppm, then it affects human metabolism. Okay. Then moving ahead, what are the different sources of carbon monoxide? Transportation accounts for 65%, solid waste disposal, then forest fires, then coal mines, and blast furnace of iron and steel. Okay, clear? So moving ahead, what are the different effects? So carbon monoxide mixes with hemoglobin of blood, right? And it forms a compound which is known as carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, that is COHB, which is responsible for reducing the oxygen carrying capacity of blood. Okay, it also affects in reduction of the vision. It causes headache, laziness, and it also causes cardiovascular disorder, right? Then in extreme cases, the patient can go into coma, or respiratory failure may occur, or even it causes death. Clear? So next is carbon dioxide. Talking about the sources, fossil fuel combustion, respiration, as you all know, we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, then forest fires and decay of organic matter. Clear? Talking about the effects, it's a greenhouse gas and hence it is responsible in increasing the average temperature of the surface of the earth. Okay, but it is less dangerous than carbon monoxide, but it causes nausea and headache. Okay, it also causes climate change. Clear? Next, it is the oxides of nitrogen. So there are basically 6 oxides of nitrogen, that is NO, NO2, N2O, N2O3, N2O4 and N2O5. Okay, NO is a colorless and odorless gas, whereas NO2 is reddish brown in color and it is a suffocating. Okay, so talking about how NO and NO2 are formed, when nitrogen and oxygen mixes and the temperature reaches around 1210 to 1265 degrees centigrade, then NO is formed, and further when NO mixes with oxygen, then it produces NO2. Okay, so let us move ahead talking about the sources of NOx: fossil fuel combustion, lightning, forest fires, decay of organic matter. Talking about the effects, like carbon monoxide when mixes with hemoglobin and form carboxyhemoglobin, nitrogen oxide also mixes with hemoglobin and reducing the oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, it causes damage to lungs and also causes bronchitis. NO2 absorbs light and as a result it reduces visibility. Talking about NO2, when it mixes with atmospheric air, it produces nitric acid and which results in acid rain. Okay. So moving forward, so next is oxides of sulfur. Okay. So there are basically 6 oxides of sulfur, which is SO, SO2, SO3, SO4, S2O3 and S2O7. Now, SO2 is a colorless, suffocating and non-flammable gas which is non-explosive too. Okay. So, talking about the sources, right? 67% is resulting from volcanic eruption and 33% is occurring due to man-made activities or anthropogenic sources. Sulfur dioxide when mixes with water produces sulfurous acid, and when sulfur trioxide mixes with water it produces sulfuric acid. Okay, so let us move ahead with the next one, that is oxides of sulfur. So talking about the effect, it causes cardiac diseases, asthma, bronchitis, eye irritation, throat troubles, and oxides of sulfur affects badly limestone and marble. For example, one of the prominent example of decoloration or discoloration of marbles is Taj Mahal, right? It has turned yellow, right? And sulfuric acid also affects plants and metals. It also affects cloths, leather, paper, and plants. Talking about the sources, fossil fuels, automobiles, industries, and solid waste disposal are some of the sources of SOx. Okay, let us now talk about hydrocarbon. So, hydrocarbon are basically of four types: methane, ethane, acetylene, and ethylene. Okay, so talking about the sources, they are due to incomplete combustion of fossil fuels, vehicular emission, industries and forest fires, and agricultural burning. Okay, talking about effects, unburned hydrocarbon, when in presence of nitrogen and sunlight, that is ultraviolet rays, produces photochemical smoke. Okay, ethylene, it inhibits growth of plants, and some hydrocarbon even causes cancer, that is they are carcinogen. Talking about effects of air pollution on human health. So as we have discussed, carbon monoxide when mixes with hemoglobin produces carboxyhemoglobin, reducing the oxygen carrying capacity, right? Oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen are responsible for eye, throat, and nose irritation, asthma or bronchitis. Then PAN from hydrocarbon plus oxides of nitrogen produces photochemical smoke, which results in irritation of eye, throat, and nose. Some hydrocarbons are carcinogen, which are responsible for causing cancer. Dust, smoke, and soot causes asthma, bronchitis, and lung cancer. Dust and silica causes silicosis, and cigarette smoking causes respiratory damage, may it be active smoker or a passive smoker. Okay, so let us now move ahead. So let's start with the next one, that is effect of air pollution on plants and vegetation. Okay, so let me ask you, what is a stomata and a cuticle, right? So as you all know that this is the picture of a leaf, right? And on the surface of the leaf there are some porous openings, right, through which the leaf breathes, right? So that is known as the stomata. Fine. So air pollutants may enter the stomata and they may try to destroy the chlorophyll. Fine. So usually fog, dust, or soot block the stomata. Clear? Next is erosion of the layer of cuticles. Right? You can see. Next is necrosis, that is killing or collapse of the tissue. Okay. And the main sources for necrosis is ozone and fluorides. Okay. Next, chlorosis, loss or reduction of chlorophyll. You can see, and the main source is sulfur dioxide. Next is abscission, dropping of leaves, and main source is NO2 and ethylene. Okay. Further, apinesty, that is you can see downward curvature of the leaf, right? So all these are the effects of air pollutants on the plants and vegetation. Okay. Further, Talking about effects of air pollution on material and building, you can see, right? So this is actually the horses of Saint Mark, right? And it's in Venice, Italy. It was made up of metal, and see what pollution has done to it, right? Then usually sulfur dioxide affects limestone and marble, right? The prominent example is Taj Mahal, and it deteriorates leather, right? It also leads in leather disintegration. Then oxides of nitrogen, fading of dyes on cotton. Then PM, corrosion, that is particulate matter, corrosion of monuments, and hydrocarbon reduces the strength of the polymer. Okay, so you can see this is the Red Fort Delhi. Okay, so talking about effects of air pollution on animals, leads to paralysis, respiratory or loss of appetite and diarrhea. Arsenic results in thirst, vomiting, abnormal temperature and death. Farm animals farm animals may be affected by lack of appetite, weakness and death, or fluorine toxicity. Okay students, so let us now start with the next topic, that is measures to control the air pollution. So there are several measures. Let us have a look at each of them one by one. So first one is the dilution, second one is the zoning, third one is the control at source, wherein there are three different methods, that is change in raw material or process change or even equipment modification and replacement, and the last one is known as the controlling equipment. Okay, so talking about the dilution, the atmosphere, like a natural stream of water, possesses self-cleansing property which continuously clean and remove the pollutants from the atmosphere under natural conditions, provided that the pollutants are discharged in atmosphere judiciously so that effective dispersion take place. Okay, if the pollutants are carried away to some distance or taken to high altitudes, they are reduced in concentration by diffusion and dilution. Okay, so the pollutants are taken to high altitudes by means of tall stacks, that is high rise chimneys, right? And the height of the stacks should be such that the maximum ground level concentration, which varies inversely with the square of the stack height, is within the permissible limit. Okay, so next one is the zoning. So air pollution can be effectively controlled by adopting the zoning system at the planning stage itself, right? So the zoning system, which provides for compatible use of each zone excluding other uses, right? And in this system, separate zone or area is set aside for industries known as industrial zone, located away from the residential zone, right? So this will result in low concentration of the pollutants in the air of the residential area. Fine. Then talking about control at source, this method is known as air pollution prevention at source, right? And as I said, it has three different methods, right? So talking about the first one, that is raw material change. If a particular raw material is responsible for causing air pollution, then use of purer grade of raw material is often beneficial, which may reduce the formation of undesirable impurities and byproducts, right? For example, use of low sulfur fuel in place of high sulfur fuel, or use of natural gas in place of coal for power generation, or use of LPG or CNG in place of petrol diesel, right? So these are certain uh, options for reducing the pollution at source, right? Then talking about the process change, so it involves new or modified techniques which offers important ways of lowering atmospheric pollutant emissions, right? So for example, washing of coal before pulverizing to reduce the fly ash emission, right? Then substitution of bauxite flux for fluorine containing fluorspar in the open hearth method, right? Then radical changes in chemical and petroleum refineries industries, have resulted in minimizing of the release of materials into the atmosphere, right? So these are certain methods. Then if I talk about equipment modification and replacement, then old equipment which contribute to greater degree of air pollution can be modified or completely replaced, right? For example, replacing open hearth furnace with controlled basic oxygen furnace or electric furnaces in steel industries, which can reduce smoke, carbon monoxide and metal fumes, and thus conserving energy. Okay, so new type of equipments in paper and pulp industries also can cut down the quantity of pollutants emitted, right? And unburnt carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons in the cylinders of an automobile engine, which are otherwise emitted into the atmosphere through the tailpipe, can be burnt by injecting air into the hot exhaust manifold of the engine. Okay, so last is controlling equipments. So certain mechanical devices can be installed in the industrial processes, which may help in reducing the emission of the pollutants. So let us have a look at each of them. So there are basically five controlling equipment. First one is the gravitational settling chamber. Second is cyclone separator, electrostatic precipitator, fabric filter, and the last one is known as the wet scrubber. So let us look at each of them. So gravitational settling chamber. So in the figure you can see the gravitational settling chamber. So these are used to remove large abrasive particles which are usually of greater than 50 micrometer in size from a gas stream. Okay. A gravitational settling chamber consists of a large circular or rectangular expansion chamber in which dust is separated from the gas by reducing the velocity of the gas. So due to this, dust particles settle down under the gravity in the bottom of the chamber, right? And gravity settling chambers are set horizontally, often on the ground, and can be constructed in brick or concrete. Okay. In order to reduce the size of the chamber, the gas velocity is kept between 0.5 meters to 3 meters to prevent re-entrainment of the settled particles. Okay, so there are certain advantages like it has low initial cost or it has simple design, right? There is a low pressure drop, then it has low maintenance, right? And last, that is dry and continuous disposal of solid particles takes place. Okay, there are few disadvantages as well, right? So it requires larger space, right? Then less collection efficiency, and the most important is that it only captures or it separates the particles of size greater than 50 micrometer, right? So talking about next one, that is cyclone separator. So as you can see in the picture, it's like inverted hopper, right? So, cyclone separators utilize a centrifugal force generated by a spinning gas stream to separate the particulate matter from the carrier gas. Okay, so the centrifugal force on the particles in a spinning gas stream is much greater than gravity, and therefore cyclones are much effective in removing much smaller particles, that is 10 to 50 micrometer, than gravitational chamber. Okay, a simple reverse flow type cyclone is shown as in the figure you can see on the in the slide, right? And a simple reverse flow, and it consists of a vertically placed cylinder having an inverted cone attached at its bottom and fitted with a tangential inlet located near the top. Okay, now, the outlet pipe from the purified gas is a central cylindrical pipe at the top, which is extended into the cylinder of the cyclone to prevent short circuiting of the gas from the inlet and the outlet. Okay, now the cyclone has an outlet at its bottom of the cone for discharging the separated particles. In operation, the particle-laden gas, upon entering the cyclone cylinder tangentially at its top, receives a rotating motion. Okay, so the outer vortex so formed develops a centrifugal force which acts to throw the particles radially towards the wall, right? And the gas spiral downwards to the bottom of the cone, and at the bottom, the gas flow reverses to form an inner vortex. Okay, to form an inner vortex, right, which leaves through the outlet pipe situated at the top of the cyclone. And due to their inertia, the dust particles tend to concentrate on the surface of the cycle from where they are led to the receiver. Okay. So there are several advantages, like it has low initial cost, simple to design and maintain, and it requires less floor area. It ensures dry continuous disposal of collected dust, right, and low to medium pressure losses, that is 2.5 to 20 centimeter, right, and can handle large volume of gases at temperature up to 90 degrees centigrade. Talking about disadvantages, it requires much headroom, right, height, then collection efficiency is low for smaller particles and quite sensitive to variable dust loading and flow rates. Clear? Okay, dear students, so that's the end of today's video. We will start with different topic in the next video.